How's it going? Steven here. Today my guest is a beer that everybody cares about now that it's gone. Anchor Brewing's Steam Beer. Alright, so this one has a really nice, rich amber color. It's almost see-through, it's almost crystal clear. There's a slight haze to it, and the bubbles are a really nice mixture. Very, very dense head, and it's very, very fluffy head too. So the aroma has a really nice toastiness with some caramel and honey, a little bit of a fruity ester apple kind of thing. And then there's a bit of an herbal woody undertone. For the herbal, it's kind of borderline like mint. Hey, it's Future Steven from the editing desk chiming in. This tasting and most of the history and background were filmed a while ago. This was shortly after its closure was announced, and I assumed that Anchor's fate was certain. So this was really supposed to be a farewell video. But the rumor mill continued to churn in 2024, and then its revival was announced in the middle of the year. I had this video sitting nearly forgotten on the back burner for all this time, and there hasn't been any news for about a year, so I figured now was a good time to release this video. Anchor's roots date back to the California Gold Rush when Gottlieb Breckel arrived in San Francisco in 1849. Breckel established Golden City Brewery in a former saloon in 1871, which was later bought by Otto and Ernst in 1896. They named it Anchor. A decade later, the brewery suffers a series of unfortunate events. Ernst dies, the original location is destroyed in an earthquake, and Otto is run over by a streetcar. The brewery was rebuilt in a different location in 1907. Brewers Joseph Kraus and August Meyer and liquor store owner Henry Tietjen keep things going during a relatively quiet period until 1920. There aren't any records of what Anchor did in that time, with no mention of them branching out into other products like their contemporaries or still making the sauce illegally. Kraus and his new partner Joe Allen reopened in 1933. The domination of large breweries, industry consolidation, and shifting interest toward light beer forces the brewery to close in 1959. It isn't long before another interested party comes along, Lawrence Steese, who buys and reopens Anchor in 1960. Despite Steese's efforts to keep the brewery afloat, Anchor is in a rough spot again just 5 years later. Frederick Lewis Maytag III hears about these troubles and a potential sale. Wanting to preserve his favorite local beer, he rushes to buy the brewery with his inheritance. It doesn't take long before the brewery is on the rebound, hitting 800 barrels in 1969, 1,200 in 1970, and 2,100 in 1971, with draft-only sales. Steam beer is first bottled in 1971. In 1975, Anchor expands its offerings with Porter, Liberty Ale, Old Foghorn, and the first release of Our Special Ale, a much-beloved seasonal beer better known as Christmas Ale. It's really hard to cover just how important and influential Fritz's management was without making this tasting a lot longer than I'd like. So Fritz's next move in 2010 is a surprising one to some. After several decades rebuilding the goodwill and quality of the brewery, Fritz sells Anchor to Keith Gregor and Tony Foglio, ex-Sky Vodka execs, and by extension, the Griffin Group. After assurances that the duo were in this for the long haul, they sell to Sapporo in 2017, and we know how that went. Now, it was right about this point in the original video where it was more or less complete, and I assumed that Anchor's closure was permanent. Despite Sapporo's public lack of interest in selling, behind the scenes, they were open to certain offers. The workers and the local community were attempting to buy it back and run it as a co-op, which Sapporo didn't accept, leaving Anchor in a kind of limbo. And then something happened that was on literally no one's bingo card for 2024. The man behind Chobani, Hamdi Ulukaya, announced the purchase of Anchor on May 31st, 2024. At a glance, this seems like a pretty good matchup. As it's looking now, this seems a lot like the good ending in this particular chapter of Anchor's story. Unfortunately, there hasn't been any news since the purchase announcement, so this story is very much to be continued. So in the actual tasting part, it's much more about the apple fruitiness and some of that herbal, woody kind of hop character and bitterness, a lot more than the nose would lead you to believe. But there is a firm midsection that's mostly that toastiness and caramel. So the body is kind of medium light, and the bitterness is moderate, but it lingers for quite a long time, like well into the finish. The carbonation is pretty firmly moderate. It's not especially prickly, it's not really fluffy, and then the feel is very firm, both in flavor and in texture. And then the finish is dry, and that lingering bitterness kind of sits in the mid-front of your tongue. It takes a little while for that to dissipate. The Anchor and/or Steam names may die, but their legacy may live on, maybe under different names, maybe just by the impact that they left behind. Good night, Sweet Prince. If you enjoyed saying farewell to this legendary beer and brewery, maybe you'll enjoy one of these, and some beers that aren't going away. Cheers, and thanks for watching.